Hello my dear students and welcome to your favorite educational YouTube channel English Valley Ma'am. So आज हमारी OTT series by day 54 know how to get the perfect score का episode 30 है, and in today's episode we are going to be revising the poem titled The Trees in your textbook, which is your main from your main reader, and this poem is written by Adrian Rich. Alright, so let us quickly read the poem so that we can understand it line by line and also study the poetic devices as well as the rhyme scheme of the poem. So let us start reading the poem. So first I'm going to read the entire poem and then we are going to do a quick explanation as well as revision of this poem. Let us start. The trees inside are moving out into the forest. The forest that was empty all these days, where no bird could sit, no insect hide, no sun bury its feet in shadow. The forest that was empty all these nights will be full of trees by morning. All night the roots work to disengage themselves from the cracks in the veranda floor. The leaves strain towards the glass, small twigs stiff with exertion. Long cracked boughs shuffling under the roof like newly discharged patients, half dazed, moving to the clinic doors. I sit inside, doors open to the veranda, writing long letters in which I scarcely mention the departure of the forest from the house. The night is fresh, the whole moon shines in the sky still open. The smell of leaves and lichen still reaches like a voice into the rooms. My head is full of whispers which tomorrow will be silent. Listen, the glass is breaking. The trees are stumbling forward into the night. Winds rush to meet them. The moon is broken like a mirror. Its pieces flash now in the crown of the tallest oak. Written by Adrian Rich. She's the poetess. Alright. Now don't confuse yourself between a poet and a poetess. Alright. Because a lot of you mention poetess also as the poet, and you mistakenly use the pronoun as he. Now this is a female poet that we are talking about, and that's why we are going to address her as poetess, and in the noun and the pronoun of course it's going to be she. Alright, so the first stanza, the trees inside are moving out into the forest. Okay, so first let me tell you what is the central theme of this poem. Now this poem talks about freeing yourself. This poem talks about liberation. It talks about renewal. It talks about breaking yourself away from the chains of being of being bounded at a particular place. Now Adrian Rich, who's also said to be a feminist, in this particular poem, so there are two opinions regarding this. So one is talking about liberation in general. The other opinion is that talking about women liberation in particular. So she has used trees as a metaphor in this poem to talk about liberation, to talk about freeing oneself from certain foundations. Alright. So in the first stanza, she says that, if I look at the trees which are there in the veranda, they are moving into the forest. So what is happening? So from the veranda of the house, the trees are finally moving to the forest, which is also their natural habitat. See, there is again a similarity between this particular poem and another poem which is Tiger in the Zoo, that how basically things which are kept away from their natural habitat, how bounded they feel, how much suffocated they feel, that they cannot find themselves comfortable in the in an artificial environment that we make from for them, basically talking about the elements of nature. All right, so in this poem the poetess, she says that these trees are now finally moving into the forest, which of course it is their natural habitat. And she says that all these days what had happened, the forest were empty and where no bird could sit, so there no birds could be found in the forest, no insects could be found in the forest. Why? Because these trees were actually their home, their habitat. So because there were no trees in the forest, in the trees one could also not find any birds or any insect, and one could also not find sun rays falling on the ground because the forest was empty all these nights. But now by the morning, what is going to happen? What is a major change which is going to occur? That is that the forest will be once again filled with these trees. In the second stanza, she says, all night the roots work. So in the second stanza, she's talking about how much physical labor, how much physical effort these trees are putting to pull themselves to pull out their roots from the veranda floor and move into the forest. And how do trees look like when they have put in so much of effort? So she says, all night the roots, they are working hard to disengage themselves from the cracks. So if you've ever seen a tree and the roots which are visible, you will see certain cracks on the floor. The leaves strain towards the glass. So she's saying those leaves, they are trying to put themselves against the glass so that they can hit the glass in a way that it shatters. And then she says these trees, they look like newly discharged patients, half dazed, moving to the clinic door. So she's basically saying, so how is a newly discharged patient like? Very active? No. Still very weak, finding it difficult to even walk a few steps. So she's saying that because the trees, the roots, the leaves, all the parts of the trees have put in so much of physical labor to disengage themselves from the cracks of the veranda floors, that now they are looking like patients, the newly discharged patients. Why are they discharged? Because they finally pulled out themselves from the cracks of the veranda floor. Now, while all of this is happening, what is the poetess doing? She says that I am sitting inside, door open to the veranda. So she says I can actually have a clear view of all of this happening. And she says that while all of this is happening, I'm writing long letters, but in my letters I do not really mention about this departure. So in these lines, the poetess is trying to say that so for her this is an important event which is happening, but why does she not mention about it in the letters? Because she feels that this liberation, this freedom should not be shared with anyone around. Okay, so she says that these trees are meant to be free, they are meant to be in their natural habitat, which is a forest. So I probably do not want to write about this or share about this to the world as such. I want this to be, maybe she wants to keep this as a secret to herself. The event, of course, is very important. And the other reason behind this, which is often quoted, is that she feels that this is something, this event so close to my heart, that how trees are getting liberated, that I want to keep the feeling of this view only to myself. All right. And then she says that now the night is fresh and the whole moon is shining. And then she talks about the smell, the fragrance of the leaves or the lichen. And she says all these fragrances, all these smells, her entire room is filled with these. All right. And then she says, while these trees are moving away, probably they are talking to each other. So she says it is full of whispers, and all these whispers what will happen? These will disappear tomorrow. Why? Because the trees will move into their natural habitat, into the forest. And she says the glass is breaking and the trees are stumbling forward into the night winds rush to meet them. So how two elements of nature are really happy to meet each other, the trees and the winds. Winds rush to, so when you see your friend after a long time, you run and you want to give them a hug. So this is exactly how the wind is feeling for the trees. And she says the moon, which is like a broken mirror, and she says it is also like a crown on the tallest oak tree. Alright, so this is the explanation of the entire poem. Now let's talk about the poetic devices in the poem. Alright, so the first common poetic device that you are going to find is enjambment, which is present in the entire poem. What is enjambment? We should know by now. When the same line is continued in the next particular line without any punctuation marks. So the entire poem is an enjambment. Second, you have imagery. How do we get examples of imagery? So the first stanza itself, it says talking about trees moving out into the forest. So you get that, you can actually have that visual image in your head. That so this entire poem again is an imagery. So basically, moving of the trees, or not moving, actually it should be movement of the trees. Okay, movement of the trees. Then the next poetic device, of course, is alliteration. Example, long letters. Then forest from. Alright. Then the next poetic device is also personification. Trees or the winds. So if remember this line we've just read, that winds rush to meet them in the last stanza. Winds rush to meet them. So this is an example of personification. Winds rushing. Alright. And of course you have the poetic device of simile, wherein the moon is said to be broken like a mirror. Alright, so these are the poetic device. And what about the rhyme scheme of the poem? Now when I started with this concept of rhyme scheme, I told you that you need to label each and every line. But if you look at this particular poem, there are no rhyming words in any of the stanzas. So this poem, if I talk about the rhyme scheme, it is written like a free words. Alright, so I hope you've understood this poem and revised this poem pretty well, and we are going to be meeting in the next episode. Till then, do like, share and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and wishing you all